welcome back to the channel. Here's the video that I promised in the last video short that I did, and it's about a subject that a few people have contacted me about. How do you feel safe being out and about, camping off grid, wild camping as a solo female? It's not about security of the camper van itself, because things like that I address but don't necessarily tell everyone about what I do to keep my van secure. Well, to me it's all about good behaviours, good habits, best practices when I'm out and about, and they become second nature. So it's not a case of being worried particularly about anything, it's just doing certain things that if I did need to, say, drive off in the middle of the night while I'm wild camping or some issue occurred, then I know exactly what I would do in that situation before it happens. So I know it's a concern to quite a few people when they're wanting to head out on their own. Personally, I've never really worried about it, but then I don't really worry about as much as maybe once I would have done when Bri was around. Since losing Bri, the worst that could happen in life has happened. There's nothing worse could happen to me, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to take unnecessary risks. I don't. I try to address any potential risk that there might be. So I've taken the sun specs off, put my reading glasses on, because I've made some notes so that I can share as well as possible my tips for safety in the van as a solo female. One thing I would say is the biggest problem can be your imagination. So I've been camping when I've been in the middle of nowhere. This was at Greymare's Tail, actually, at Moffat, and pitch black, no lights at all around you, which is bliss. And in the middle of the night I woke up and I could hear some sort of scuffing noise, and the van moved a bit. But I actually remember being so tired that I fell back to sleep, and it was only in the morning that I thought about it, and I think it was the sheep were rubbing up against the van. But if I hadn't been so tired and I'd been led there thinking, what's that? There'd have been all sorts running through my mind. It would have been an axe murderer, it would have been something really sinister. It was on Halloween as well, so it could have been anything. But common sense in the light of day tells you, oh, it will have been the sheep rubbing up around the van. So the worst thing sometimes is your imagination. Don't let that rule you, don't let the fear rule you. My desire to get out there in the van, since being on my own, is so great that it would override any imagination issues that I might have. I just want to be out there, and I'll do anything to get out there. So I would never let fear hold me back. To me, I don't know if other people think like this, but if I'm in the middle of nowhere, in the wilds of Scotland somewhere, I feel safer there than I would parked up on a street, side street somewhere in a town or a city or a car park, because there are people passing through there, walking around there all the time, where you could say, yeah, but when there's people around you're safer. But there's also more of a risk of a break-in, or be anything, drunks, opportunists, somebody attacking the van, which we've all seen on YouTube. Occasionally it can happen, but these are rare incidents, I would say. When you look at everybody that's going out there, it's not something that's happening all the time. Whereas when you're out in the middle of the countryside somewhere and there's nobody about, I actually feel safe. I feel safer there. So these are the precautions, or the behaviours that I employ to maximise my own safety as a solo campervanner. If I'm parking off grid in urban areas, I try to use places that are designated for motorhomes and campervans. So places where I feel welcome, that I know I'm not going to be upsetting local people. I'll contribute, if it's sort of like a £5, £10 fee to park over, I'm happy to pay that. I'd rather do that than risk parking somewhere that's going to local people off, that I think could then attract sort of negative behaviours, potentially. I'm not saying it would, but it could in places. I also don't get if I'm parked, say on a car park, I don't start unpacking all my stuff. You've got a space to park overnight, but don't abuse it. It's not a campsite. So that's what I do in urban areas. When I'm wild camping off-grid, out in the middle of nowhere in the wilds, my most favourite thing in the world. This is what I do. 1, keep fueled up. Don't drive out into the wilds if you've not got enough fuel in your tank to make sure you can get back, because you don't want to be stranded anywhere, especially if it's an emergency situation, but at all. You want to always make sure you've got plenty of fuel in your tank, because you don't know when you're going to come across another fuel station. So when you're setting off, get yourself fueled up and keep an eye on it. Make sure you're aware of when you're likely to need any more and how easy it is to get that fuel. I always keep my phone charged. When I'm driving, I keep it plugged in so it's charging all the time that I'm driving. So when I've pulled up somewhere, it's always fully charged. And then through the night, I've got my power bank, so it's easy enough to keep my phone charged. I'll never let it run down, because you never know if you might need it. Another thing I've noticed, some people will park up in positions that I don't park up in. So I would always reverse into a wild camping spot. I'd be aware of my surroundings as much as I can be. I've never just turned up at one late at night. I know some people do, but I'm not that confident yet. So I'll reverse in so that I'm facing the exit. People walking past thinking, what's she doing? So I'll reverse in, facing the exit, so I've got a clear drive out if I need it. I'll always leave space around the van, so I've got manoeuvrability. I don't tend to use chocks when I'm wild camping, but if it was really slanted and sloped and I needed to, what I would do is I wouldn't drive onto the chocks. I'd reverse onto them so that I can drive off without, getting the chocks stuck underneath the van. So I would always reverse onto the chocks, and I'd just leave them behind at the end of the day. If it was an emergency, I'd just leave those behind. I always set the alarm and lock my doors in a way that obviously still allows movement within the van. I never ever park up anywhere, not even on a campsite, without locking my doors. It's like at home. You wouldn't go to bed and leave your front door unlocked. For the front windscreen there, I have screen covers, thermal screen cover, which covers the side driver's and passenger windows and the front windscreen. So I have 2 types of those. When we were in the motorhome, we only ever used the external cover because we didn't wild camp. We only went on campsites. So I automatically bought one for this van when I got this van. And then I thought, oh, was that the right move? But it does have its place. I use that when I'm at, say, festivals. I've done one. I sound like a real regular festival goer. I've done one. But I use it when I'm parked up, like I say, at a festival or on a campsite where I'm not going to be driving off. But when I'm wild camping, I will use internal thermal covers so that I don't have to get out of the van to remove it. I also, when I bought my van, made sure that I had 2 single seats rather than the bench seat, because again, if I needed to drive off in the night, I can easily get through from the hab area to the driving area without having to get out of the van. I think you can still do that even with the double seats, but I think it's more of a clamber over, which I could do without. Going back to the 2 seats, I will turn this chair around to sit in, but the driver's seat is always kept in the driving position exactly as I leave it when I get out. So that never needs altering. It can turn round. I mean, I could do it on a campsite, but there's only me anyway, so I just turn the passenger seat round. But when I'm wild camping, I would definitely never turn that chair round. That's just ready to drive all the time. Also, another thing I don't do myself, I don't put my steering wheel lock on when I'm wild camping, because I wouldn't need the hassle of having to try to get that off if I was having to drive off in a rush. Your fingers and thumbs, wouldn't you? Wouldn't be able to find the right key to do that. So that's why I'm shaking the camera, just to show you how stressy it would be. Also, at the end of the day, if someone was so intent on taking my van, if someone was so intent on taking my van, I wouldn't fight them for it. it's insured, it can be replaced. We can't, you know, self-preservation over the van. Doesn't mean I'd just let them take it, but I wouldn't put myself in mega danger for the sake of protecting my van. When I go to bed at night, I will always leave my car keys in the same place in the van, so I know exactly where they are in the pitch black. I wouldn't have to be switching all the lights on or scrambling around trying to find them. I keep the hab area clean enough that I could drive off if I needed to, you know, sort of. I won't have loads of things all over the side that would fly around. I keep it relatively clean so that, you know, I could just, if I needed to, I could jump out of bed and into the driver's seat. I don't sleep in pyjamas. I'll just have jog pants and a t-shirt on. I'll have a hoodie hung up, so they're pretty much good to go. Now, we're in the UK, so we're a bit limited to what we can use for self-defence should the need ever arise. But just being aware of what you've got in your van, where everything is, I think that's a good habit to get into, just knowing the inside of your van and your equipment and what you would do if you needed to. I have a very heavy torch that I use anyway, so if someone came in, I'd just clonk them with it and then I'd answer questions later. But again, I don't dwell on things like that, because I think if you had to think too much about it, it would take the enjoyment away. I think once you've thought these things through, like I have done, and you've got into good practice, good habits, then that's it. You know, it becomes second nature and it's not something you have to think about. When I park up in a remote spot somewhere, I don't wander around sort of advertising the fact that I'm on my own. Oh, there's a woman in there, she's on her own in the van. I tend to keep pretty low profile. So when I've shut the van up at night, you know, it could be anyone in there. It could be a big burly bloke, or it could be a little woman like me. Whenever I'm parked up at night as well, I use my indoor toilet. I don't get out during the night. Even if there's a public toilet nearby, I wouldn't get out and wander across to it. That's just me. I don't feel I need to, so why do that? I use the indoor toilet. So basically, once I've cabined up for the night in the van, that's it. I don't go out again. I don't need to. If you're in an area, you know, where you get a gut feeling that something doesn't feel right, or you're not 100% happy with somewhere, if that's the case, I will never stay. I will drive off. There are other places, and I think your gut instinct is something to listen to. Just drive off. Don't wait till the middle of the night when you think, oh God, should I have moved? Oh, I can't move now. Or I don't. Just move on. Don't settle somewhere that you don't feel 100% happy. Blah 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 blah. I've always kept my van looking sort of not feminine, so looking like it could have anybody in it. I don't put CAMPERVAN decals on, because I don't feel that would be a good thing to do, because I'm all over social media. I'm not saying loads of people watch it, but I'm over social media as a woman on her own travelling, so I don't really need to advertise that on the side of my van. So I purposely don't do that. Something I heard from another person, which I thought, oh, what a good idea, I hadn't thought of that. When I'm out and about, I like to pair my iPad up with my iPhone, so it'll piggyback off the Wi-Fi hotspot. One thing to consider is what that's actually called on your phone. You know, I don't know, well, I won't say what mine's called, but just have a think about what it is, because if it's your name or it identifies you as a female particularly, you can always rename that, so it's something, I don't know, whatever you want it to be, but not something that identifies you particularly. So I thought about that after, and I changed mine. Change it to something butch or scary or weird, so that if anything, people are put off by it. If they're looking for a hotspot in the area that you're parked up and it comes up with something odd, they're probably like, oh, leave them alone. I know some people go to all lengths. They'll leave a big pair of men's walking boots outside the van, or a dog bowl. I've not done anything like that. I haven't ever felt the need to go to those extremes, but at the end of the day, what works for you, do it. I carry a personal attack alarm. I have done since I got the van. Just seemed a natural thing to get one. Police approved personal attack alarm. They're there, they don't cost much, why not just keep one on board? You never know. Doing this video makes it sound like it's such a dangerous thing, solo while camping, and I really don't think it is. I haven't found it to be so, but I think it's important to share these tips because I have been asked by a few people to. So it's not meant to put the fear of God in you, it's just meant to up your confidence, really, for people that want it upping. So you can get ideas of places to park on apps such as Search for Sites, Park for Night, but you still need to do your own sort of judgment and risk assessment of these places when you pull up there. Like I said, if you get the gut feeling that something isn't right or it doesn't sit right with you, then go with that. You know, you've got to judge that for yourself. And as much as you can, even looking on Google Earth and seeing what's around there, you know, if you were to have to move in the night, just being aware of your surroundings, really, I would say. Roads in and out, what's around you. When I was on the Isle of Arran and up the east coast of Scotland, I would check in with friends, relatives on what 3 words. So I give them my what 3 words location in the night time, so when I arrived somewhere, and then in the morning I'd let them know that everything was fine and I'd set off somewhere else. That said, when I was on Arran, there was some gale force winds and my mum had been watching the weather forecast, and I checked in with her. I told her where I was that night and then forgot to check in with her again the following day. And obviously she was trying to contact me. Are you all right? Are you all right? I thought you'd been blown into the sea. There were gale force winds. I said, no, honestly, I'm fine. I'm sorry. So it is important that you do check in with them, but also do let them know you're all right the next day and where you're heading to, so that just people are aware of where you are. I often do updates on social media like Instagram, just of nice photos from the day and saying what I've done, but I never ever put the location on, because sometimes people have said, oh, that looks nice, where are you? But I only put the location on after I've left, so I don't do live updates of where I'm at. The reason I don't is because I am on my own, so I don't advertise where exactly I am. I'll put a general photo up that, you know, that I want to share, but then a day later when I've moved on, I'll update the location of it then, because I'm no longer there. That's just something I've automatically done. It just makes sense to me. So yeah, build up gradually. Don't, like, the minute you get your van, right, I'm going off to the middle of nowhere. Just build up local campsites a bit further. Try a pub stop, car parks that are off grid, but there tend to be other vans around. And then build up, because your confidence grows gradually like that, and you're not, you know, it's not about testing yourself to the extent that you feel uncomfortable. It's about building up to doing what you want to do, and then feeling confident and comfortable doing that, because that's when you'll enjoy it. If you're doing it and you're not enjoying it, what's the point of doing it? You know, they're my behaviours and they're my hints, tips, whatever you want to call them. I hope it helps those that have asked for it, and maybe those that haven't. And it's not just solo female, is it? It's solo travellers in general, but from a female perspective, we do, I think, sometimes tend to feel a bit more vulnerable. Touch wood, I've not had any bad experiences yet, and even if I do, I'm sure it's something that I'll address at the time and move on. I hope. Who knows? I hope I'm not revisiting this saying, oh, I said this and look what I did. So I'm still learning all the time about wild camping and things I could do. I think I'm doing some good things already, but, you know, I'm always open to suggestions. If you've any more, please add them in the comments. So I'd finish this just by saying, get out there, enjoy it. We've every right to. Girl power.